We're engaged in a lot of projects. Those include projects on farms and projects on non-farm lands in terms of restoration. On farms, we have been working very hard to develop an agriculture program which is now 7 years in the making. We're very proud and pleased with the fact that we are working with farmers in this geography to jointly work on best management practices and cleaning up the river. So on farms, one of the big projects that we're working on is to work with farmers on nitrogen efficiency. And nitrogen comes from fertilizer. Fertilizer then is obviously not just coming from farms. It's also coming from wastewater treatment plants. Nitrogen is coming from septic tanks. They're coming from our own use on our lawns, which add up to quite a bit of excess nitrogen and phosphorus. But in the context of farms, we're working with farmers on best management practices for using the fertilizer at a time and in the place where it can most successfully be have uptake from the plants and the crops themselves. And so when they go back for a second application of fertilizer, say for example on corn, we have 8 farmers using a device called a green seeker. And what this device does is that it has a computer software in the cab of the tractor, and it also has sensors that are mounted on the boom of the tractor itself, and these sensors then read through red and infrared light the vigor of the plants themselves, and then the computer basically is telling the spreader, apply this amount of nitrogen here in this part of the field, less here, more here, depending on how it reads the vigor of the crops and what crops actually need fertilizer at that location and in what amount. And through this effort, we hope that we'll see more nitrogen efficiency, and if the whole point is to avoid loss. So if the plant can successfully uptake the fertilizer, then it means it's not available on the surface of the field in order to be washed away. So that's a big effort. It's a 3-year effort, and it involves, as I said, 8 farmers and 17,900 acres of farmland. We've completed year 1, and so we will be moving on to year 2 and 3, and so I hope you'll join us when the green seekers are out in the fields at the end of May, early June, because I think it's an exciting development that we hope will really advance nitrogen efficiency. We also have farms who are planting switchgrass in marginal farmlands. So if you think about the areas just contiguous to the river or to its creeks and streams, often those are fairly wet, and that means that they may not be that advantageous as a placement of crops. You probably, if you can grow crops there, your yield may not be very high because of the wet conditions, but it's perfect for those same areas, or exactly the spot where we want to have more buffers so that it can intercept any pollution running off the field. And native grasses and trees are great intercepts, but switchgrass is particularly interesting because, one, of just its physical characteristics, they have like 11 to 12 foot roots. So that means you not only get the advantage of being a surface intercept of these native grasses of switchgrass, but also their deep roots can actually uptake nutrients that are already in the shallow groundwater. And then beyond that, you can cut it. What we're trying to also do is to find markets for this cut switchgrass. We have 400 acres right now in the watershed in switchgrass. And our agricultural specialist, Paul Spies, has been working very hard on finding markets for the switchgrass. So, I mean, hopefully we would love to eventually see switchgrass and other native grasses to be used as biofuels, as an alternative energy source for our geography. That's something that we're working on. I mean, it's still a developing market, but it's still a promising one. We're trying to provide buffers through native grasses, through trees, through shrubbery, that will be intercepts for pollutants that otherwise are going to be lost to the river through rain events or runoff, through storm events. And some, for instance, they include things like we planted a 300-foot living shoreline at Camp Pacomath. And we did that with the help of students from Queen Anne's County High School and with Unity Nursery. And it was a really good project, and the kids did a great job. And the idea being that's something that's going to help hold the shoreline. Other things we're doing is we planted last year over 3,000 trees in two major projects, one at Sudlersville Middle School. And again, we've been trying to fold in an educational effort, so to have students involved in the planting. And so at Sudlersville, we had their ecology core, as well as all the science classes would take rotations out and help plant trees. And so again, the placement of these trees would be at an area that is at the headwaters of an impaired stream, which again will serve as intercept for pollutants. And similarly, we have a large project that's still going on now at Kent County High School, where the students have been extremely involved in a two-phase planting that is both on the high school property, but also at the contiguous Wharton Park. And interestingly, the students there actually went before the commissioners to present their request for a permit to undertake the project. And so they've both worked the governmental side of it, as well as the sort of muddy boots on the ground, you know, putting down plants and digging holes. And so they've been really good efforts because they, again, fulfill this idea of we want to be doing more restoration at the headwaters of impaired streams, but also as an educational tool as well. So those are the types of projects that we really want to ramp up.